Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Robbie, and this is The Unhinged Father. It's a podcast for normal folks looking for some humor, connection, relatability, or those who just like the sound of my sultry voice. A place where we can embrace aiming to be better people, but can accept that we will never get there. And that's okay. We're okay. I'm not some enlightened asshole here to tell you how amazing and perfect my life is, and then convince you to buy my how-to guide on how to make your shit not stink. I'm right here in the mud with you, working towards a better life, extending a hand out along the way. Now let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. All right, everyone. Welcome to the show. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day, having a good week. Hope everyone is doing well, surviving, making it through. 2025, it's not slowing down, busier than ever, but here I am, ready to do the podcast for all of you, my adoring fans. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. Now, something that's kind of been on my mind, well, not just been on my mind, it's been on my mind for a while, something that I've thought about quite a bit. And part of my job of being a dad is thinking about how to raise my kids. It's not just like fly by the seat of your pants, do whatever the fuck you want, and not actually pay attention to what you're doing. You need to be very mindful when you're a parent. And I take that real serious. I want to make sure that I'm providing my kids with the best opportunity to have the best life that they can, and also setting them up to just be good people. Like I talked about last week, that's the most important thing to me, is making sure that I've got two well-adjusted little boys. Well, for right now, just two little boys that are able to approach life, have fun, be happy, be blessed, and also make a positive impact on the world, be good people. And that takes a lot of thought. And I'm someone who, for a lot of things in my life, have kind of flown by the seat of my pants. I've just really kind of done whatever felt natural and whatever instincts. And I do think that we can get into a space, especially nowadays, where it's like, trust the experts, listen to what all the experts say. And there's a lot of bullshit in that too. And one of the things that I came to realize by going to college and being with certain people is that there's book smart, and then there's like real life smart. Some of the smartest people in classes that could recite stuff, could go over theory, just couldn't translate it to the real world. And I think that there's two sides of the coin. You've got this intellectual research type of information that comes in that we get from, psychologists, biologists, like whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is, from the quote unquote experts. And then you've got real life experience. And I think both of those are very valuable, but we've tended, especially in recent years, to just trust the experts, to trust academia, to trust people that are professionals in this, as opposed to relying on some of the instincts that we have as parents. And I think that you need to take both sides of the coin. You need to combine both of them, utilize them both, and then also see which one works best in the real world. Because this isn't like your typical science experiment, right? We're human beings, and human beings will react to things differently. Each kid is different. You can have the same type of parenting style for each kid, and they're all going to turn out a little bit different, because that's just what humans do. We're unpredictable. Our kids are the same way. They're unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's not necessarily exactly what I wanted to talk about today. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is this concept that I see. And for me, I'm someone who I wouldn't call myself authoritarian, but I do believe that having discipline and authority in a relationship with your children is extremely important, because it's our job as parents to help guide them through, keep them safe, and get them to adulthood. And part of that is being in a position of authority over your children. But one thing that I've noticed with other parents who have this tendency of authoritarianism as well, like I said, I'm not sitting here being an authoritarian over my kids. I understand that they're human beings. They're little people. They've got their own emotions, their own thoughts, feelings. And I take that into consideration in everything that I do when I'm raising them. That being said, at the end of the day, if dad says, go put your shoes on, it's time to go to church, that means go put your fucking shoes on, it's time to go to church. But getting back to what I've seen in some of these parents who really appreciate, or not appreciate, but put such an emphasis on children respecting authority and children listening to them and doing whatever they say, and not being, it happens on both sides, parents that are authoritarian and also parents that are more lax and just like, oh, let my kid do whatever the hell they want. But it's this idea that children are miniature adults, that they're already prepared and ready to handle the world for anything that it throws at them, whether that be we think that they're miniature adults. They should go into a situation, should be well behaved. We take them to a restaurant and it's like, why are you yelling? Why are you upset? They don't have chocolate milk. Why are you crying? Why are you doing that? Like, we think that the kids should act in a certain way, and we don't take into consideration that they're not mentally prepared for that. They don't have the emotional control that we as adults have. And sometimes I feel like we're harsher on kids than we are on ourselves. That we get angry, we get upset, we have emotional outbursts, but if we get in trouble, right, it's not like there's anyone there to hold our hands or tell us we're doing something wrong or to get in line. But we hold kids to the same standard. And I'm not saying this to say don't discipline your kids, don't tell them what's right and wrong, but it's just to have a little bit of extra grace with them and not to get so frustrated every time that they have an emotional outburst or they have a little temper tantrum or they are defiant in some way, shape, or form. That's normal. You do that shit with people at your work. You do that shit with your spouse, your relatives. It's normal. And they are little human beings, but they're not miniature adults yet. They're not set up to be able to have this emotional regulation. That's what your job is, to teach them and to also be the example for them in that way. Same thing on the other side, where sometimes I feel like the more lax parents will be like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. They know how to do this. They know what to pick. They know what to select. And I don't want to get into something that's too politically charged, but I see this in the way that children are being raised now. And when people talk about kids in terms of like identities, gender identity, all this different stuff that comes up, right? It's almost like I've seen people say that children shouldn't get a tattoo because they don't know what they want yet, right? Kids under the age of 16 or 17 shouldn't get a tattoo because it's a permanent on their body and all this stuff. But then you also have these same people that turn around and just say like, oh, a kid knows what gender they are or what species they are or what fucking animal they are and all this other shit that goes along with it. It's on both sides, the authoritarian and the non-authoritarian. It's like you almost feel like children are adults and that they have the capacity to handle a lot of these things that they're not necessarily prepared to handle at whatever stage in life that they're at. And that's on both sides of the aisle. That's for both types of parents. And I think that kids need to be allowed to be kids and not have fear of retribution or getting yelled at or constantly being yelled at or feeling like they're always doing something wrong. But at the same time, they need to be protected on the other side too, where they don't go and do something that is going to have severe consequences to their lives. That they could make life-altering decisions when they're 5 years old or 6 years old or whatever it may be. I think that we as parents need to realize that we should be giving our kids freedom, treat them like little human beings because they are little human beings. They've got their own thoughts, their own emotions and stuff like that, but they're not miniature adults. They're not capable of making these big decisions. And they're also not capable of always being in control of their emotions and regulating what they're doing. So that's just something that I've been seeing lately. I think that it's something that is important and something that I'm constantly thinking about as well, is that like I need to be the example for my children because I'm the one who, if dad loses his shit all the time, or if I yell at other people, or if I yell at them, or they have big emotions and I can't handle it, I'm setting this example for them for the remainder of their lives. I'm setting them up for how they try to emulate what we're doing. Kids are always trying to emulate what we do, emulate what their siblings do, or what people that are older in their lives do. And so I need to make sure that I'm keeping myself in check and regulating my emotions and not letting them see that like, hey, if they have big emotions, then that means that I'm going to have big emotions. Because on the flip side too, is that if we can't handle the emotions that they have, they could almost like label them as bad, or that if I have big emotions as a child and my parents get mad at me for that, or they have an emotional outburst, or they yell at me, or they hit me or something like that, then that's bad. I can't be that. I can't be that person. And I think that that's really terrible, especially when you get kids that are labeled angry or rambunctious or aggressive or whatever it is, right? Every kid is going to have a different personality and a different emotional makeup. And I think that it's important for us to, as opposed to trying to quash it or to quell it, to embrace it and to try to guide it. Like if a kid's angry, or if a kid is has big emotions, can't share, can't do this, instead of like trying to come down and bring the hammer down on them, you try to help them harness those emotions and use it towards something that's positive, or to help them have an outlet that's at least not detrimental to other people, that's not hitting, that's not screaming or yelling. And on the flip side, if you're a parent who doesn't help them regulate and you just let them do whatever the fuck they want, like that's not good either, because then you're going to let them think that, oh, you have a big emotion, you can go hit someone, you can take a toy, you can do whatever you want, you can scream and yell and curse, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Your job as a parent is to help guide them and to learn how to have productive outlets for whatever emotions that they're feeling or whatever thoughts that they're having at that time. And so that's something that's constantly on my mind, something that I'm constantly thinking about. And I'm obviously not perfect. I fuck up. We all fuck up. But I try to set the best example that I possibly can, because sometimes it'd be easy. It'd be easy to just yell at my kids and tell them to get in line and, squash down anything they have. But I'm more of the type of parent, and it's not just with my own kids, it's with other kids that are friends with my kids, or like cousins and stuff like that, trying to always like see what their personality is and then guide them in certain directions. And every kid is different. You have to approach each kid differently, and there's different approaches you can take to get them to do what you want without just yelling at them or being this big authoritarian. And then also, don't just let your kids do whatever the hell they want. They need your help. They want our help. They want structure. Kids do better in structure. And if they don't have that structure, they can feel lost. And that's when you're going to have a whole set of other issues that come along with it. And this is something that kind of goes along with all of this. It's partially my idea, and my ideas have changed somewhat on this. And spanking might be I don't know, I don't give a fuck. It's not really a hot button topic. It's something that people talk about all the time. And some parents spank, some parents don't. And I know that for me, when I was younger, before I had kids, I was like, I don't know if I really want to spank or hit my kids for disciplinarian purposes. But that being said, I could see that there might be times to potentially utilize that type of discipline, mostly because I got spankings when I was younger. I was in a different generation and we got spanked. And so I thought that this is just like, this is normal. This is fine. But as I've gotten older and as I've had kids, I've come to realize, or at least in my opinion, that I don't think that it's necessary. And I don't think that it's something that has to be done in order to give discipline. And you'll have certain parents that will just be like, oh, I was spanked, I turned out fine. It's like, yeah, maybe, but there's other things that probably come up in your life that came up from being spanked. And I'm not saying that the generation before us is worse or terrible for spanking. I just think that there's potentially a better way that can not be spanking and not be hitting. Because I think that it's really easy as a parent to think like, oh, well, I just spank for this certain thing and it's a non-emotional thing. But in all reality, I don't think that that's the truth. As a parent, if I ever got to a point where I was like, my kid deserves a spanking, I think I'd be emotionally charged. I think I'd be angry. And I think that that's where it's super detrimental, because it's like you're the safe space for your kids, especially when they're younger, when they're typically getting spanked, right? Or they're typically getting some sort of corporal punishment. It's when they're younger. You're trying to get them to not do something. And in all reality, like you are that person that they should be going to, right? They're coming to you. The world is already harsh enough and scary enough. They don't need to come home and be afraid of their own parents, that if they do something small, or if they, I don't know, aren't able to regulate their emotion in a certain situation, that they have to fear that they're going to get hit from their parents. Their parents are going to be angry and they're going to be scared of that. I also kind of think of it in this terminology, and this might be, I'm sure there's plenty of you that are out there like, oh, this fucking bleeding heart softy, I spank my kids, whatever, fuck off. If you really think that way, like you haven't been listening to what I'm saying. I think of it like this, is that if I was in public and I saw a husband hit his wife because she did something that he didn't like, I would fucking go in there and beat the shit out of that guy. I would step in. So why is it that if we see an adult hit another adult or do something like that, even if it's like for quote unquote discipline, why is that not okay? But it's okay for us to do that to kids, right? If luckily I haven't seen anyone spank anyone in front of me before, but I'm not going to lie that if I did see an adult who was aggressive to a kid or hit them or did something like that, like it would fucking, even if it's on my kid, I'm all for parents being parents to their kids. I don't want someone to come in and like stop me from, if I talk terse to my kids or if I'm like more authoritarian that they would like, I don't want them to come in and try to undermine what I'm doing with my kids. But if we saw an adult hitting another adult, we'd step in. So my question is, why is it fine when it's for kids? Why is it okay for that? So that's just my my little rant on that. It's something that I've been thinking about and something that like I said, my views have changed on it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to stop other people from parenting the way that they want to parent. And do I still think that it's okay? Like, not for me. Not for me. But if it were going to happen, if another parent was going to utilize that technique, I really think that it should be something that's completely non-emotional, some sort of, I don't know, action, then consequence. This is consequence. There's no emotion. There's no yelling. There's nothing like that. It's just like a very cold and emotionless thing that happens, because at least in that point, it's not like, I don't know. It's almost like it isn't a consequence as opposed to some sort of like emotional attack, because we always talk about if you burn your hand on a stove, you learn the lesson, action, consequence. But the stove's not sitting there yelling at you, telling you're a bad kid or doing anything like that. It's the stove is cold, unemotionless, but that's just the consequence that you get. You touch a hot stove, you're going to get fucking burned. And so I think if you are going to incorporate this, like I said, you don't have to listen to me. I don't give a shit if you do. I'm just kind of venting out these ideas that I have in my head, and maybe someone picks up on something. But if you do go this route of having corporal punishment within your relationship with your child, I hope that it's non-emotional, that it's really just a consequence for an action, and that your kids don't have to associate some sort of emotional importance or feel like they're a bad kid or that their mom and dad don't like them because of something that they did. All of this coming back to the fact that kids are not mini adults, and that there's probably plenty of offenses that we do as adults that would earn us a spanking, but we expect our kids to be able to be perfect all the time. And if they're not, boom, they get a spanking, they get in trouble, all this stuff. So like I said, I don't know where I'm going to go completely with this, except for the fact that I have conflicted thoughts on it. My thoughts have changed over the years as I become an adult, as I become a dad. And for me personally, I just don't think that I could do it. I don't want my kids to be afraid of me in that type of way. I want my kids to respect me. I want my kids to listen to me. I've gotten that effect down pretty pat. I'm not a yeller. I don't yell at my kids. I have requests. I use stern voices. But if I really get to a point where I need them to know something, like my yelling voice, it works just fine, and I reserve it for few and far in between. So it has the same effect as a spanking, as corporal punishment. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had on some of these things that have been coming up. And yeah, in terms of like teaching a lesson versus punishment, I think that discipline and punishment have two different things, because I'm not going to lie and say that there have been times where I've been upset with my children, and there's this little inkling in the back of my head. It's like, I'm going to teach them a lesson, or like you almost get like this, they deserve this. It's almost, I mean, it kind of feels gross saying it. It's almost like you're pitting yourself against your kids in a certain way. And like, it's like a conniving, manipulative thing that comes up. And like I said, it's normal. Like I have felt that before, but it's like being mindful to stop that type of thinking and to figure out a better way. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to, like I said, you're trying to build good little human beings, and you're the model for it. And I don't know, if I was a kid and I thought someone did something that I don't like or isn't the right thing, and the model for me was like something that wasn't right, and that results in some sort of physical altercation, physical punishment, they're going to think that that's okay. And discipline is to stop a behavior. And I think that punishment sometimes can go into more of the sadistic and revenge and payback type of mentality. And any parent that says that it's not, you're lying to yourself, because I haven't done that. And I've had those little inklings of shitty thoughts pop into my head before, because it's normal. We're human beings. Even if you're a parent, even if you're a dad, even if you're a good dad, these intrusive thoughts will always come into our heads and we'll think certain things. So that's why I just stay away from it altogether. And I think that discipline is a good thing to do. Having boundaries for your kids is a good thing. Having structure for your kids, but I'm just not on board with the corporal punishment. I also think that you can get more out of children by connecting with them. And I know that this is something I hear some of the, what's it called? Some of the Insta psychologists, Insta moms, Insta dads that are just always like, make connection and don't tell your kids. I think there's a fine line. You don't want to just go so soft that you're going to try and have connection, but just because you have a connection with your kids doesn't mean they're always going to listen to you, doesn't mean they're always going to do what's right. Your job is to help guide them. But I think that it's a lot easier if you're connected with your kids to have them really do stuff that's right, to really have them see the benefit of doing good things and to listen, to behave, to become a good human being. Having that connection is going to be better than just being an authoritarian figure. Because even if you look at governments, right? Authoritarianism can get things done, but at the end of the day, it usually breeds resentment in the population. And I think the same thing can be said within raising kids, that being an authoritarian, having the boot down and all that stuff can get your kids to listen. But when they're at a point where you're no longer threatening them, are they going to do what's right? Are they going to be good? Or are they going to be resentful and be like, fuck that, I'm going to go the opposite direction? It could go either way. Like I said at the beginning of this, you can do everything right, and kids are human beings, which means that they're unpredictable, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be a good person. I'm just saying in terms of patterns and putting yourself in the best situation and your kids in the best situation, that's what I believe. I think you should try to guide through connection, through love, through being a good example. And yeah, that's really it. I think that being a loving parent, being a good example for your kids is the most important thing that you can do to them. Build a connection with your kids, show them the benefit to being a good person, to doing the right thing, that there is a benefit there and that they shouldn't just do it because there's a threat of them getting in trouble or the threat of a spanking or something like that. But they should be doing it because when they do that, it's more of a peaceful situation. You're in connection with those children and there's a benefit to being a good person, not necessarily just a punishment, that there's also this benefit that comes along with doing the right thing. So that's my thought on it. I don't know. Maybe this is a hot button episode that people like, people don't like. I don't know. Call me soft, call me hard, call me whatever you want. But that's just my thoughts on it. And I'm going to continue to try and be mindful every day and think about these things and have these conversations on the podcast because I'm kind of talking to myself, trying to work out what my thoughts are, where I'm going. And just like my thoughts on spanking have changed over the years, I'm sure that my thinking on this will continue to change. And this is just a way for me to vet that all out. But that's going to be it for this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something small out of it, or maybe you're super pissed off and just want to yell at me. Either way, feel free, leave a comment, send me a message, a little button in there. Let me know what you think about the episode, what you think about my thoughts on this. And until next week, have a fantastic rest of the day, good week, good weekend, and see y'all on Tuesday. That's it for this week's episode. I appreciate y'all being here with me today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasting needs met. If you feel the show deserves it, leave a 5-star review. It really helps. For more content, follow me on social media. As the show continues to evolve and grow, I have a big ask for all of my Unhinged fans. Each week, I'm going to ask you to share the episode with one person in your life that would relate to or benefit from the message. Click the share episode button and text it to them, email it to them, or send it through social media. Whatever you do, please help spread the word to others. Your support and endorsement is greatly appreciated. In the episode description, you'll find a send me a message button. Use it to suggest topics or share your thoughts on the episode. Just a heads up, I can't see who sent the message or respond in any way, shape, or form. So if you would like a response or you want to be a guest on the show, send me an email at unhinged.father@gmail.com. Thank you for your support. Have a fantastic day. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.